The Indiana Pacers are known as one of the most consistent and solid organizations in the NBA. And they've had this reputation for a while as, a team in a small market that's always just looking to be competitive. And, they made a finals in the 90s, but they've had some good teams, definitely. But this team they have right now, there's definitely talent on the roster. That's not in question, but I feel like it's time they gotta let go. They just gotta restart. And with Shams reporting that players such as Sabonis, Miles Turner, and Karis LeVert could be on the trade block soon as Indiana may look to enter a rebuild, I think this is very much the right decision for the Pacers. And this group of players they have right now is not bad at all. I mean, Malcolm Brogdon's a really good player. The rookie Chris Duarte, who, is 24, very old for a rookie, but he's been really good. Karis LeVert's a crafty scorer, and I think Domantas Sabonis is a decent player. I don't think he's as good as his stats suggest. I think he's a player whose play style is hard to build around in the modern NBA. And even that being said, though, I do think they could get something decent for him in a trade. He's a 25-year-old all-star, along with another 25-year-old big man on this team in Miles Turner. I don't think they will mesh together. They've tried to make it work for a while now, but it just seems like it's going to have to be either or, and it might be neither. I think the Pacers should trade both. They've tried this core of Sabonis, Turner, they added Malcolm Brogdon, this group of guys, and it hasn't worked. They've been hurt every year. TJ Warren is hurt this year. He's been hurt really for like the last year and a half. Ever since that great bubble run, he hasn't played that much. But they've had these group of guys, and they've underachieved in consecutive years. But also, even when this group is healthy, their ceiling is like I'd say 4 or 5 seed. That's a first or second round exit. And, the Pacers might be content with that if they were actually putting in those results. But even that core of guys is severely underachieving for another year, as they are now 11-16, I believe. And I just feel like it's time. They just got to restart, man. Similar to the OKC Thunder, obviously very different roster. They had way more talent, but they're a team in a small market that just realized we gotta just restart this thing. They had Chris Paul, and with Chris Paul as your best player and that supporting cast, I think they realized that it's smart that we should enter a rebuild. And for Sabonis and Malcolm Brogdon next year, who is a really good point guard, I must say, I think they could get some good assets. Karis LeVert as well, who's a very talented scorer but has struggled to stay healthy up to this point in his career. He's 27, and he could definitely help a playoff team out with his shot creation. That obviously a very valuable asset in the NBA, if not the most valuable asset in the NBA. But I think really for the Indiana Pacers, any player that isn't Chris Duarte should be available for trade. They just got to tear it all down. And like I said, the first guy I think they should look into trading is Domantas Sabonis. He's a good player. He puts up good numbers, but I just don't think you could build around him that much. And even if you don't want to build around him, he's a tough player to, just have as, a player in your team. He's very ball dominant. He is a good passer, but he just needs the ball in his hands all the time. Similar to Julius Randle of the Knicks, he needs the ball in his hands all the time, and he's not good enough to have the ball in his hands all the time, and not good enough to be like a number one option on a good team, and hasn't even been a number one option on a playoff team. They made the play-in last year, didn't even make it to the playoffs, got smoked by an okay Washington Wizards team that did get hot at the right time. Westbrook and Beal, obviously a pretty good duo, but still another year of underachieving. Doug McDermott also left them, but they did add Duarte. They also drafted Isaiah Jackson, who's another guy I do think they should keep. He's only played 5 career games, but they spent a first round pick on him, and he's 19 years old. So I think you keep him and Chris Duarte, but another guy, TJ McConnell, someone like Jeremy Lamb as well. Both of those guys, Miles Turner, Sabonis, Karis LeVert, really anybody should be available for a trade. If a contender comes calling, or maybe even a young team for a guy like Sabonis or Turner, I do think they could keep Turner. I think he's a very good player and definitely easier to play with than Domantas Sabonis, but I don't think he's untouchable, and he did recently express how he was unhappy with how he's being treated within the Pacers organization. He feels he's being treated like a glorified role player, and he should be looked at as more than that, which I do believe, he has a right to feel that way. He's having a really good year offensively and defensively, but I also feel like the Pacers have a right to feel the way they do, that he isn't a star, because he hasn't taken that leap, that real leap. A lot of people seem to be expecting him to, every single year going into the year. He's always a breakout candidate, Miles Turner, and he's a really good player, but I don't think he'll ever be a great player like some people thought he could be. But with that being said, here is my actual proposal for the Indiana Pacers starting their rebuild. And it starts with trading Miles Turner or Sabonis. I think Turner's more likely. I think he's more valued around the league. But like I said, I do think Sabonis will have some interest as well. Shop LeVert, Sabonis, McConnell, Brogdon, Lamb, Warren. That is Brogdon when he's available. He did just sign an extension. But when he is eligible to be traded, I don't think they should force him out. He's still a very good player. Same with Karis LeVert, but I think they should definitely test the trade market on those two and other veterans such as TJ McConnell, Jeremy Lamb, and TJ Warren hasn't played in like 2 years. The third step is developing the young talent, which, sounds a bit vague, and, they really don't have that much young talent. They got 2 rookies, but those guys should play a lot. Chris Duarte and Isaiah Jackson. And I do think it's interesting what Goga Bataze's future will be with the team. The center from Georgia was picked in the first round a few years ago and hasn't been able to really get consistent game time, but definitely, has an interesting skill set. And I do think when Sabonis and Turner are eventually moved, because I do think it will happen, it's going to be interesting to see if he can finally take those minutes and, run with it, get a real, establish a real role within the team. And I'm saying when Sabonis or Turner is traded, he's another player that you've got to look out for and should be getting a lot of minutes. Isaiah Jackson should be getting more minutes, I do believe, out of Kentucky, the big man, shot blocker. And Chris Duarte is already getting a lot of minutes. He is 24, but he's still a rookie, and I do think he's definitely a piece for the future for this Pacers team. He's already really good. Maybe not a super high ceiling, but nonetheless, he's still a good young player on this Indiana Pacers roster. And the last one, is tough because I know they did just hire Rick Carlisle, but I do feel like if they're going to enter a rebuild, he's not really the guy suited for it. This offseason, they fired Nate Bjorken after one season that really was rough with him, and they brought in a more established coach in Rick Carlisle with the goal of, with this core they have, to give it a real shot at trying to win now this season, and it just hasn't worked. And I know it's very early in Rick Carlisle's Pacers career, but I just think that if you're going to enter a rebuild, he's not the guy for it. He's definitely a more win-now coach, definitely, a more established coach in this league, older. And I think when you're entering a rebuild, they should have a young, developing, new offensive-minded coach to lead the way with that. And Rick Carlisle, he's been coaching for a long time. In the last, few years of his career, completely understandable. He's going to want to win games. I don't think he's going to want to wait around another 2 or 3 years for the young talent to grow and develop till they're competitive again. And yeah, in conclusion, that is why I feel the Pacers should rebuild. And that is my proposal on how they should start the rebuild of their franchise.